Well, today we're going to tear down and install covers on 80 through 84 Vanagon. Although the later ones are very similar, we're concentrating on those. First thing, you need to get your tools together. We've got a list here. You'll need a screwdriver, a pair of side cutters, an 8mm Allen wrench or Allen socket, 6mm or a socket, a pair of vice grips, screwdriver, X-Acto knife, grease pencil or chalk, and the installation kit that you should have gotten from Westy. So we'll start. First thing you have to do is get these plastic covers off. They pretty much just pop off. Set them aside. This one kind of slides up and off. Okay. I'm going to use this because it's a little quicker. I'm going to take out these two shoulder bolts. Helps to have a little something, a can, something to throw some of these small parts in. Okay. Now to get the backrest off, I found the easiest way is take it down like that and work it off. And you'll notice these little pins, there's flaps on them. And they fit into that groove when you go to put it back together. So we're going to set this aside for a minute. And work on this. This is where you want a grease pencil, only so you can remember how this rod goes back through there.
Okay, go.
Okay, it's a 5mm. Now, you notice this popped up. It's because there's spring tension on it for the backrest. We'll deal with that a little later. Okay, now, what we've got to watch, there's a little spring under here. When it goes back together, it'll go here, and that's to tension this seat track release rod. There's one on each side. There's a right and a left. See that again when we put it back together. Now, this is going to come apart. It's going to fall apart, no problem. Set that aside for a while. You can clean these up and paint them while you want. Now, the trick is wiggle this rod out of there. You'll notice this tension rod came apart. So won't worry about it. We'll deal with it later. There we go. Now we're just going to set that aside. Okay, now we're ready to get the cover off. I can show you on an old one. This is what you'll be taking off on your swivel seat. The cardboard edge sewn into the cover. And on the new one, that cardboard edge is tucked in a channel down here. It may come out easy, but probably not. Trick is to get it started, or you can just cut it off if you want, but we got him started. Now on the Vanagon, it might get difficult because there'll be little barbs in there that are holding this on. If you run into one of those areas, you might be lucky. We're lucky today. I think we got one there. We can bend that out a little bit. Sometimes a pair of pliers will help. Hope you don't plan on reusing this cover. Now, we'll get these edges away from the frame. Now, I actually should be able to get the foam and everything right off the pan. And we can set the pan aside. Now we want to roll the cover up over. And this is what you're going to find. A penny. There's a rod with some hog rings. Now, since this is out of a standard passenger van, your swivel seat will be very similar, with the exception of it's going to be another bar across here with hog rings. So with the side cutters, cut the hog ring. I might add, if you're replacing this bottom foam, you can probably just take this whole mess and set it aside. There's an extra one on these non-swivel seats. There's 4, and the ones we're going to install, there's only 3 on each side. So we're done with that. We're done with this. Now, on your swivel seat, You can see the difference here. If your foam is like this, you may want to think about replacing it. The other thing that happens is these rods that are supposed to be embedded in the foam sometimes are pulled out and not embedded anymore. So what we're going to do now, since we are replacing the bottom foam, we're basically turning a standard bus seat into the Westphalia swivel seat. So this is what you'll have. We're going to take these rods out. And set the old cover aside. At this point, since we're going to be working with the new covers, might want to put a blanket or something down. And we're going to take the new bottom pad, 432594 SW for swivel. If you got the wrong one, it won't fit. Reason for that is the swivel seat foam is a little bit narrower to make up the difference for the swivel mechanism so your knees don't hit the steering wheel. And so your feet reach the pedals. Three rods, two of them are short, or one of them short, the other two is long. They're going to slide in the new listings. Okay. Now what I like to do is let's hook those two things together. They may not stay there. There we go. You might want to, well, the center of the cover is pretty obvious in here. The spot for a hog ring there. The center on all these covers will be real obvious. It's this dark brown line, and they'll all be the same. So, I'll lay the cover on there. Then, out of your installation kit, from Go Westy, there'll be a pair of hog ring pliers and more hog rings than you'll need. You got to grab that, make sure you grab that wire that's embedded in there. And it's the same on both sides. On each side, again, making sure you catch that embedded wire. Also recommend that when you're doing this, do one seat at a time. That way, you can always go back and look at the other one. Okay. Now there's sort of two ways to do this. I like to roll this over before we put the foam back on the seat pan. Now, should be able to slide the seat pan in there. And at this point, I'd like to mark the center using your grease pencil or a piece of chalk. And we'll do the same on the back. Okay. Now this part can get fun. We have to roll this cardboard edge over like this. You can try and do it all the way around. Okay, now the trick is get enough pressure on this to compress the foam. There'll be a mark for the center. We want to try and line that up. Corners can be a little tricky. Try not to seat it yet till we get all the way around. And it can get a little tight. In fact, if you need to, you can get on top of the seat and use your body weight to compress it. Okay, now I think we can go ahead and there we go. And those little barbs should I got a little trouble on this corner. See, I've done this a lot and I have problems, so don't feel bad if you have a couple issues. You can, with a little bit of help, okay, we're going to pull this side off. Get it a little tighter around that corner. we're gonna open that channel up just a little bit here. Okay, a little trouble here because the channel is a little bit tight there, but I think we've got it now. There we go. It should be pretty much flush with the rest of the pan. And the little barbs will hold it in there. And the bay windows, they did not put the barbs in there. And sometimes that cardboard would work its way out. Okay, now we do the same on the back. Center, center. Okay, you notice this is a little loose, but that's where that bar is going to come in. You can also turn the welt so it's nice and even all the way around. So now we have our cover on. We can put the seat tracks back on. Probably want to clean it up. Like I said, you can paint them. So this guy goes on this side. And I'm going to loosely we're not going to tighten it all the way up. Okay, now remember I told you to mark that line? This is why. We got to slide this guy back in there. There we go. And that's where he goes. Up goes. In that little slot. And through that hole. Now remember the two little U springs. They go under the track. Like this. And I think we can hope I didn't lose the spring there. Put the rear Allen head in. And again, just loosely. Okay. Now, this release rod, maybe backing up. Yeah, we're going to back up. Yeah. Okay, before we tighten this back one, we need to get this torsion bar tube located in the hole. Now we can start oops, our little spring moved. I want to make sure. Okay. Now, this spring, you notice the little hook there catches underneath that seat release. Oops. I think we can start the front one. And sort of just finger tight for now. Okay. Now, I'm going to push this torsion rod back in about that far. And I think okay. Now we can tighten this guy up. And this is a good time to check that those springs are working right. And they are. What they do is release from the track in the vehicle so your seat will slide. Now, I'm going to flip her over. The seat back release. This lever, there's a little hook, and there's some gears here. When I had this apart, that moved. So we just want to get that in one of those gears. Okay. Now the tension, this tension rod. I'm going to take a pair of vice grips and your mallet, rubber mallet, hammer. I'm going to grab that tension rod, move it up so it lines up with that hole, and whack it in there. It's done. We can set him aside for a minute. Okay, now on to the backrest. First, got to get the headrest out. And there's a couple little clips in there. You want to watch that so it don't fly too far. And note which way they go. The straight edge is going to be on the back side when we go to put it back together. Like that. Now the headrest will slide out. The reason that straight part goes to the back is that what stops the headrest in its positions. Okay, now on the bottom of the seat, 4 little barbs here, and we need to carefully bend them up. The reason we want to do it carefully is we don't want to break one. You can also use side cutters to help. If we break one, you got problems. Okay, that should work. And then notice the back of the cover is over top of these barbs. Now the front of the cover over the barbs. Now, I'm going to roll this up. If it tears, no big deal, you're replacing it, right? Okay, now it's not going to come all the way off because we have these headrest guides. That's what they look like. Now, on some of these, this is boxed in. On this one, we can see and feel the little barbs. Here's the other tool that came in your kit. Idea is to get it like that so we compress it. Like I said, some of them, this is enclosed and you'll be doing this blind. That pretty much feels like it's in the right place. And hey, that one popped right out. As did that one. Okay, now, I tend to leave these in, and you gotta notice, and I'll show you on this one, there's a narrow ridge and a wide ridge. They've got to go back in the same way, or they won't go back in. Here on the frame, wide ridge, narrow ridge, so they won't go back in this way, they have to go that way. If you leave them in the cover temporarily, it's easy to remember. Okay, now this pad is actually in really nice shape. And generally they are. So I don't see a need to replace this pad. Yours may be in good shape. If not, this is the foam one that's offered. You notice I have marks here. Well, we'll show you on a, this is a brand new one from Volkswagen. It's no longer available. But you can see the issue here. The foam one's a little bit long there. And you will not get the cover on unless you trim that out. Electric carving knife works really good. The other option, Wolfsburg West. These are for like 75 through 79, but they're identical to the Vanagon one and the same deal. So that's an option over the foam. In any event, we're using the old one, using the hair one, using the foam one. Highly recommend that we glue a piece of burlap on the back. You can see these spring marks here. Eventually, those will cut right through this foam. So, rubberized hair. I believe it's coconut fiber. So, spray glue available at most fabric shops. We're going to trim some excess off. Oh. Let's stop for a minute here, and I'm going to put this one on there just to show you if you use this. Make sure you line up the headrest holes. A little bit of glue. But you can see where this is a little large. Down here at the bottom. It should be, if you look at the old one, the foam is like right at the edge of the spring unit. But since this is in such good shape, we're going to use it. Make sure the headrest holes are lined up. Okay. And you'll notice that these came a little loose. These are pads for the back corner. There's enough stickum on that to go back where it belongs. Okay. Now you'll notice there's a bunch of padding underneath that sort of came apart. So, again, your local fabric shop. This is like a soft felt. Almost anything like this of this thickness will work. And the headrest holes. Now, I think we want to put our pad down. And remove these wire rods out of the old cover. Back. And the front. And they're both the same length. Although the front one's sort of pre-bent for you. You'll find little holes in the hemline here. Let's try and get it about where it ends, equal distance from the welt. Okay. Now, if we're lucky, you want to try and keep the welt on the outside positioned along that edge. And just pull the cover down. Okay. Now, you remember, the front goes on first. And now, there's our center mark. And if you do find marks, sometimes we'll mark these things. It comes off with little water. This is actually not grease pencil, it's a photo mark pencil. Which are hard to find these days. So, the idea is stick this over the barb. Now, this new material is actually pretty rugged. So this again, where the X-Acto comes in. Cut a slit, slide it over the prong. Now, we've also provided a middle mark on the back side. So, you line up the middle mark. These prongs may poke through the vinyl a little easier, and this could be a little tight. Yeah, we're gonna use the X-Acto again, because again, we don't want to break those prongs. Right here you want to check. See, I've got this wire rod a little bit too far over this way. So we'll try. There we go. That's so it doesn't hit here and it goes where it's supposed to. Mm-hmm. Now this is going to be really tight. Okay. I'm going to do a little something I usually don't recommend, because if you're not careful, you can tear it. Now, we're going to bend this prong back a little bit. There we go. We got it. And before we go any farther, so that it doesn't pop off while we're bend those over a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now we need to bend these back down, and you need to get them all the way so the points are up there, actually almost poking into that material. The reason for that is those prongs aren't going to tear the bottom seat cover. You don't have them all the way down. Okay, now we're going to cut the holes for the headrest guides. There'll be chalk marks. They should be pretty much right on, but we're going to call it approximate. You can feel. If you feel in there, you can feel the edge. What we're going to do, we're going to cut an X. We don't need a whole circle. Just the X will be fine. Okay. Now, the old ones. Wide groove, narrow one. And actually, if you forgot or you didn't mark, you can feel it. The wide one is on the outside, which is that one. And you find that other hole down there. You can tell when you got it. And he's in. And I'm going to open that hole a little bit more. Okay, and if you get your finger in there, you can actually feel. Again, the wide one goes that way. gotta get lined up with that bottom hole, and we're there. Now, these guys, and remember, straight one's in the back. And this can be a little tricky. I want to make sure that they go to the outside of the guide. Okay, I think we got that one. Yep. Yep, you can tell. And the other one. There we go. Okay. So you can pop a headrest in now, or what we're going to do is I'm going to put the back on the bottom first. Remember, we pointed out earlier, and it's really hard to see, that those little pins have flats. So if we're lucky, they're going to slide in those little slots. And it may take a little wiggling. Hey, we got lucky. Now, this is why we wanted you to bend those barbs over. If we didn't, we'd have been tearing up this part of the cover. Start both of them. And it may take a little wiggling to get that shoulder in the hole. Stick our covers back on. That can be a little tricky, but they pretty much have to slide from the top. This one, and you'll note there's a little right there, snaps on that tension rod. A couple little ridges there. It slides over, snaps on the tension rod. Now we can throw our headrest back on. And your seats are done, ready to put in. In case we missed it and we didn't get to it, there is a left and right seat. The only difference is where these levers are. They'll actually interchange in the vehicle, but your release lever and recline lever would be on a different side. Other than that, they do slide in. And if you haven't figured out how to get them out yet, this little hook here, when you slide the seat all the way forward in the vehicle, pull that hook up, it'll slide right off the front. Okay.